Welcome to 501 Crossroads, your show all about nonprofits and the people that make the mission happen. I'm Marjorie Moore, President and CEO of Mind's Eye, and my personal mission is to make nonprofits stronger by identifying and fixing the rubs that so often come up between people and the mission. My fabulous co-host, the nonprofit ninja Natalie Jablonski, is here.
That's right, specializing in helping nonprofits maximize their time, talent, and resources to achieve organizational greatness. You know, Marjorie, there is a thin line of thinking that is often argued that nonprofits need to act more like for-profit businesses. And while we can certainly take the time to argue this concept, I do believe there is one thing we could probably agree on today. The for-profit sector does a great job of advertising, especially compared to the nonprofit sector. Wouldn't you agree?
I definitely agree on that one. So today we're talking with Lisa Adams. She's the publisher of Marketplace Magazine, which is located in the Metro East area of the St. Louis metropolitan region. She's a subject matter expert when it comes to advertising, and we thought that she could lead our discussion today and maybe help our audience get a little advertising one-on-one for nonprofits. So, hey, Lisa.
Hello.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
And full disclosure, Lisa has been a volunteer for both mine and Natalie's organizations.
That's right. That's right. We love her, but we know you're going to love her just as much. So, Lisa, why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself and also a little bit about Marketplace Magazine?
Okay. Well, I am from the area, went to Belleville West and went far away as possible to college and ended up right back where I started. And I'm very happy. And I have a 21-year-old son at Mizzou. He went to Muscuda. And my husband works at Bank of America downtown St. Louis. And I purchased Marketplace Magazine after working at the Post-Dispatch for about 20 years. And purchased Marketplace so that I could own my own publication and be closer to home when my son was in high school. So I could get to all of his games and be a part of his life while he was in high school before he took off for college. So Marketplace is direct mailed 7 times a year to 50,000 homeowners in Madison, St. Clair, and Monroe counties. And this coming issue, I publish 7 times a year. So this coming issue is going to be my 5th one of the year, called Early Fall, and it is going to the base. And I have never gone to Scott Air Force Base.
Scott Air Force Base.
So I don't know what took me so long, but I'm really excited about that. Because
well, so are they, I bet.
Super. Well, it'll be like a nice little resource guide when someone moves to town and they're looking for things to do. I'm also digital, and I want people to understand that every single page of Marketplace is on my website. You can thumb through it like you're reading it in real life, and on Facebook. Every page I've ever published for 8 years now. I purchased the magazine 8 years ago, but it's really 22 years old.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, it's homegrown right here at local. And the homeowners that I mail to are in a higher than average income level to target a specific audience. And I also put the magazine in 13 grocery stores, including all the Deerbergs and Schnucks in Edwardsville, Collinsville, all the way down to Columbia, plus Eckert's.
Nice.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm. So a few things that I do with the magazine to help promote people's business, which is the point of the magazine, is I like to run articles for you if you sign for a certain amount of time. And I like to write those stories because journalism is my background. And you really get a great return on investment when you have that story in the magazine because people get to know you better and you're in the table of contents. So, and I might plug you on the cover, which is really nice too. And I also expose everybody on my website, Facebook, Twitter. I'm trying to get more with the program with Twitter, but I'm getting there. And
so are a lot of nonprofits, so it's okay.
So is the show.
Well, that's right.
It's another full-time job.
Yeah,
it is. That kind of stuff.
Well, that is why they have social media managers, specifically for that reason, because there's so much to do. I know I just met with a friend for lunch who said, I'm a full-time mom, and I feel like I have a job just trying to keep up with Facebook so that the parents and the in-laws can see what's happening with their grandkids. And,
yep, that is so true. And another thing I like to do is promote the magazine at different community events like Art in the Square and Wingfest. Salute to the Arts is coming up. So I'd like to be a sponsor of those so that when people get the magazine in the mailbox, they look at it and think, oh, hey, I just saw this at, Salute to the Arts. And maybe they won't put it aside. Maybe they'll really look at it. And I also belong to 2 chambers, BNI. It's also in Hallmarks. So I try to brand myself as much as the advertisers in the magazine are trying to brand themselves.
Nice.
To get more exposure for everybody.
Well, I think one of the things you said,
Mhm.
Lisa, really touches the heart of our nonprofit listeners, which is you want the advertising to tell a story. And that's one of the
Mhm.
reasons you tie in advertising in the first place. And I think that's one of the reasons that nonprofits are missing the boat, and they probably need to learn more about this. Wouldn't you agree, Marjorie?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, you know, Lisa and I were talking before the show. It's really hard as a nonprofit to be able to say what the ROI on an advertisement was.
Yes.
But Lisa, every time I get an email from you, there's this quote at the bottom from Henry Ford that says, "A man who stops advertising is like a man who stops the clock to save time." And so it's kind of that same thing. Like you can't always see the ROI, but
Mhm.
like it's there, it's coming, and
Right.
it's tough to do.
Mm-hmm.
So why is advertising so important?
Well, really, to be simple about it, advertising is important so that people know you exist.
Mm-hmm.
And if you promote your product or service, whether it's a for-profit or not, you have to spread awareness. And an easy way to do this is advertising. There's other ways to get exposure. Like I just said, I like to be a part of community events and things like that. And I like to sponsor nonprofit activities and things like that. But the major advantages of advertising are to introduce a new product or a service to the market, or if you've been around for a while, maybe to reintroduce you or discuss your expansion. And also advertising can help you expand your mission in the market, and it can also help you recruit people to help you join in your cause.
I think that's huge because we tend to run in the circle of thinking in the nonprofit world that everyone knows about us, everyone knows what we're doing. And that's because we tend to socialize with those people who know a lot about what we're doing in other nonprofits, and we are connected to each other in various facets in life, whether it's in person or whether it's by email or social media. So we feel like, quote, everyone already knows what we're doing. Everyone knows about us.
Exactly.
And then you run into someone who doesn't, and you're shocked. Like you give them that shocked face. And I think that's the edge that advertising does. It gets you to those people that are not in your circle of influence.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So how should nonprofits approach advertising, I guess is the right word, because is it truly different than other businesses? Should nonprofits be looking at advertising in a different way?
I personally don't think so, because you're trying to get the word out just as the new meat market down the street is trying to get the word out. And you have to watch your budget, I know.
Right.
Because I'm involved a lot with Masterworks Corral, and I know how...
Another great nonprofit, by the way.
Another great nonprofit, yes.
Yep.
I hope people know about it. But things that you can do, I think, which you guys could answer this better than I can, but is to seek sponsors for your advertising. For example, I've seen a bunch of billboards around town where there's a billboard and it says so-and-so sponsors Masterworks Corral or something like that. And so it's work. I mean, you have to go find that person. It'd be easier just to write a check and run an ad. But I think that by getting your sponsors for advertising and seek sponsors for your ads in any media besides billboards, that was just an example. But for example, Masterworks seeks sponsors through program advertising. In each of our 6 concerts, there's a program. People buy ads in that. They're very inexpensive. And that is super, super helpful to us.
Well, and I think, too, those program ads, we're so used to running those for our own events. And we think of advertising perhaps internal, but we are also looking and talking today about external opportunities for advertising and working and teaming up with other businesses that are interested in what we're doing. It's a great link for them to be able to share their passion for your mission in a very public display.
Absolutely. And I also think, you mentioned the program ads. I've seen a lot of nonprofits kind of either swap those program ads, either that or I'll pay you $500 now and you're going to pay me $500 later or whatever.
Right.
So that it's, so that you both get that kind of cross promotion, which I think is really good if you have a nonprofit that, works towards the same audience or has complementary missions or something like that.
Well, we like to do that with the Bach Society and the Het.
Oh, yeah.
And one other that's escaping me. But those kind of things are where our listeners, our concert goers are going to come from, is from other concerts.
Oh, yeah.
So I try to do
What a
trades
great
as much as
idea.
possible. But then it's also good to have the revenue from them if, So anyway, it's a fine line sort of because you don't want to go too crazy and
but I
trade
like
everything
that.
away.
It gives our nonprofit audience some ideas of if advertising before wasn't something they thought was in the budget. So what what other organizations have a similar target market that we have a great relationship with, or that we want to build a relationship with, and doing that sharing of, well, we'll give you an ad if you give us an ad. It gives you the exposure without having to dip too far down into the budget costs. But speaking of which, we're going to dance around it, but we might as well let's go there kind of first, because I could already actually hear some of our audience members laughing at us talking about advertising because they ain't got no budget, as they would like to say. And I feel your pain. We remember Marjorie and I are both executive directors in nonprofit world as well, as is Lisa with Masterwork. So let's talk about some approaches to advertising that nonprofits need to consider and eat that elephant one bite at a time. So budget restrictions, advice for advertising on a nonprofit budget, any negotiation tips, things we should look at?
I would get to know your media folks. Like, we have a wonderful classical radio station out of St. Louis, and one of the DJs is just a huge fan of our conductor in Masterworks, and every time I send a press release, she puts it on the radio. Nice. And the Belleville News Democrat has been fantastic. There's a couple of people there that just take super good care of us. And in Edwardsville, the same way, SIU, the same way. So you just develop relationships. It's all about relationships. And then send out those press releases to 60 different media places. I have a great contact list, and someone will pick it up. Someone will at least give you a call and talk to you about it.
That's good advice.
I know several years ago, we had an event, and a newspaper ended up offering to swap sponsorship so they gave us some advertising. We gave them basically a media sponsorship for our event, which was really nice, because otherwise, in that particular event situation, there was no way we were going to pay for newspaper ads for that. It didn't quite make as much sense for us financially, but, putting up a sponsor, doing some signage for them, calling out their name during the program made total sense.
Absolutely.
Well, and we've talked about several mediums just in the last few minutes. We've talked about billboards, newspaper, radio, and I think it also comes down to knowing your audience really well and who you're trying to capture. How do we find those who want to find us? Where do we start?
Well, I was going to ask you guys that.
Oh, good. Actually, maybe we'll toy it around together.
But in Masterworks, it's just kind of obvious where the demographics lie. For example, when I advertise for the kids camp, I can do more digital because our parents who have kids in that age group are more digital. So Facebook was really fantastic for this summer camp. But then I go to advertise a concert, and demographics, the digital was just, wasn't even, there was hardly any click-throughs because they're going to open it up and read it in the paper, or I'll mail them something, But now with Marketplace, how I find my target market is I actually go and buy a mailing list from a company called Mailers Haven, and you go in there and you pick everything you want. And
similar to boosting something on social media, on Facebook, for example, where you can kind of give some specificness.
It is just like that. Now, Facebook, if you want to try and reach as many people as Marketplace reaches, you're going to spend as much or more on that boost as you would an ad in a magazine. But Facebook for my nonprofit is very helpful for that certain demographic.
Do most mediums have statistics on who they are reaching with their target audience and what that looks like that they should be sharing with their advertisers? Should we be asking
and you should be
for
asking.
That? Okay.
Yes.
What type of things should we be asking for?
You should be asking male, female, ages, household income. You could even ask for education. Anything you can dream of, they have a mailing list for.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing.
Now, when we talk about print media, I guess I always get concept confused on here's how many we mail to, but then they also use another phrase, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's about how many people actually read that.
Yeah, newspapers throw those numbers around. They have the actual subscription number, which is whatever it is, and then the readership is going to be times 2. Times 2 or 3 a year.
Because the odds are you'll have that in your household, or you'll take it to your office, and that more people will read that, and they use those two numbers.
But
so,
when I say I direct mail to 50,000 people, it's 50,000
households.
Yes.
And that
is always... I did readership. Man, I'd be...
Well, you'd have at least 2 in my household, I can tell you right now.
I know we're giving you 13,000 here on Mind's Eye.
Awesome.
What about advertising strategies to consider? Because I think what's unique about nonprofits is that people come into the nonprofit sector with different various backgrounds. It might be social work. It might be with finance. They may be coming from the for-profit sector, but in a very specific role or way. Maybe more mission-driven, such as they had a loved one that was impacted by the services, which got them interested and started. So they may just have a business background. You do have a few crazy kids like me who started in marketing and ended up finding themselves in the nonprofit leadership role, but not a lot. So I always worry about what type of strategies to consider, especially if you don't have an advertising background. Because they say, how many times do you have to see it before you actually have some sort of recognition?
Consistency is key.
Consistency. So yes. I would say a shotgun approach, not so much, because that's going to scatter you everywhere. Or can you get benefit from that?
We tell our clients to visualize a pie, and we would like a slice of it, but you need to put your eggs in other baskets because not everybody's reading Marketplace. Not everybody's reading the newspaper.
They should
well,
be.
Of course they should. But realistically speaking, you need to make a nice little strategy, print. I'm not a huge believer of radio unless you can really hit those big KMOXs and stuff like that. But because I'm old-fashioned and I like print. And
that
TV,
goes back to knowing your audience, right?
Yes. Right. Yes. And TV is expensive. If you can pull it off, if you can pull off being on one of those shows, Great Day St. Louis or something like that, Show Me St. Louis.
We love Great Day.
So something like that, but try and hit Edwardsville, hit St. Clair, try a little bit in St. Louis, and make sure you tell them you're a nonprofit and ask them, do you have special rates for nonprofit? And if they say, no, we don't have special rates, say, do you have remnant ads? Which means you send them your information. They create an ad or two that if they come up at the last minute and they need to fill a hole because it's going on the press, they'll put you in there.
Wow. So
and then you can get a really good rate.
Yeah. Do you send different sizes for that so that you can fill in or only within your budget? Or
you could, except I've noticed in here that you mentioned, a lot of nonprofits probably don't have an in-house graphic designer.
Right. We typically beg, borrow, and plead for someone else who has those skills to give back to the organization.
Well, you can do that with a volunteer, which is super. Just make up a couple sizes. Or, and these graphic artists at these media places like Marketplace, obviously, we design the ad for free. So no, you don't have to worry about that with me. But other organizations that can peel apart that PDF or whatever you send them and they can regenerate it to be the right size.
Oh, nice.
But always ask about those remnant rates.
I've never even heard of that before. That's a huge takeaway for me. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Just call up your rep and say, hey, if you have an extra space, throw this in there.
Very nice.
That's nice. So you can't, you don't guarantee you're going to get it, but if it runs, then you pay a lower rate?
Yes.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, much lower.
What catches a journalist's eye with regards to PSAs? Because I know that you had mentioned that you write some PSAs and you send them.
Press releases.
Yes, yes. Is there something specific that maybe we could learn from your
Always have an angle. Always have an angle. Always think of something. For example, last year, our Christmas concert, my angle was Christine Brewer, the opera singer.
Oh, wow. She's phenomenal.
I could blow that all over, and everybody was all excited about that. But then I'll come up to a concert that maybe the music is not quite as well known or the singer's not quite as well known. So you find something in the music or the musicians. All our musicians come from St. Louis Symphony. So I might try to really make that a big deal. Always have an angle for that one person who's looking for that one thing to come to,
Because what's
sense.
interesting to us as an organization must also be interesting to the reader. Otherwise, it's not gonna catch.
Yes.
So they just don't want name, address, the who, what, where, all that.
Well, start with that. Who, what, when, and where. And then say, this year's Christmas concert will feature 10 musicians from the St. Louis Symphony. Just find something to hook onto and give the reporter a reason to follow up. Is what you want to do.
Now, if you don't know where to start, as some of our listeners may not, and they've never...
I can help you.
Yeah. Obviously, we're going to give Lisa's information, so I know everybody's excited. Do not fast forward the podcast. Just wait.
To write, too.
But when they call a newspaper or another medium, and they're trying to figure out who to send that press release to, who should they ask for? What office should they ask for? I think these are things that even some of the the basics need to be covered?
Well, your events, you want to look for your lifestyle type.
Okay.
And even if you call a radio show or a radio station or TV or whatever, you want to say, I'm looking for those people interested in events, interested in lifestyle, interested in someone who reads at Mindset, whatever it is, and go about it that way instead of just shipping it off to the whoever you find on the website.
The news desk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Exactly. You want to send it to the specific departments, especially with your events, all your fun stuff that you have coming up.
Now, is it taboo to send it to multiple departments in the same?
Ooh, no.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, you can do that.
Right. That's what I always wondered. Like, is it okay if I do that or not?
Yeah.
And
now with me, it's going to be me.
well, yes, this is true. I'm thinking about some of our audience members are from big metropolitan areas, and they may have multiple large newspapers, like the Chicago area.
Look for bylines. If you see a neat story on somebody, find that byline and send it to that person.
Excellent.
Because those are the kind of people that care enough to follow up and do neat stories like that.
So would it be appropriate to say, Dear Janet Smith, I saw you did an excellent article on XYZ.
That is awesome.
And I thought this might also be something you would be interested in. Excellent. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. I don't think I would have thought that type of approach before.
Yeah.
That's what I love about this gig that we have. It's, I do. It's like free consulting. And I hope all of our audience members appreciate that too. What about other best practices, Marjorie? What do you want to learn about?
So I'm kind of wondering, I know you mentioned that radio wasn't a big fan you weren't a big fan of it. Hurt my heart a little bit. But
I'm sorry.
Okay.
As soon as I said that, I thought, wait a minute. But
I did see your rose crumble a little bit like Beauty and the Beast. So the petal fell off.
So, but what I'm really wondering about is, like digital advertising versus print advertising. So, you've got all of we could either go like, let's look at a paper, with their online advertising or with actually being in the paper, or even looking at Facebook ads versus, being in the paper or somewhere like Marketplace. What should we consider when placing ads like that?
Well, like I said, you should consider your demographics when it comes to the digital, but it's also, I think Marketplace has a good thing going with your print ad is going to be on the website and it's going to be on Facebook.
That's
and
nice.
Then I boost those posts as well. And then if one of my clients sees their ad that I posted and tagged them on, then they could go and boost that post and just keep it going.
Yeah, keep it trained. I do love that you tag everybody who's in the magazine too on Facebook. I always
I
find that
hope
really
it's
fun.
not annoying.
I
But
love
to
it.
me,
I love it.
That just helps it get farther out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wish more
never know who
papers
you're
would
gonna
actually
touch.
do that. I think it would be really nice if like the Post ran a story about us and tagged us, which would be great. So,
one of the things that I'm curious about, and Marjorie, I'm sure I'll get a good giggle out of you as well as another nonprofit leader, but how many times have we heard from funders, we want to know about not just, what you're doing with outcomes, but the impact that it has. And we have to justify that on every grant application ever written. So I'm just curious if that applies here with regards to outcomes and impact. Should we be tracking for ROI? If so, what should we be tracking? How do we, if, for example, we've got an event going on and we want to get it out there, and we want to do some print advertising. Let's take one medium. And we take a pie, we put a slice in this paper, a slice in that paper, as you suggest. What type of data should we be collecting to look and see if that had trend lines or impact on people who attended, or am I trying to force something that's not going to work?
Somehow you need some kind of call to action, or call us for this, or email this, something that you can track. If you're just putting something in there to brand yourself, you're really not going to see an instant return on investment. You might get the phone ringing occasionally more, that people want to volunteer more, they want to donate. You call them up and ask them for a silent auction basket. Maybe they'll say, oh, hey, yeah, I just read that. I just saw something about you, something like that. But I tell advertisers to always put a call to action, whatever it is, even if it's a free consultation or something like that. That is, to track it is a great question. It's really hard to do, I think, but I wish more people would do it instead of just trying an ad and saying, well, nobody came in. Well, did you ask them?
Right.
You don't know that. So
we've been doing that lately at my organization, because we have some ads that we're running in different places, but the call to action is to call the office to get the digital information. And anytime I get the phone, the first thing I ask is, "Oh, how did you hear about it?"
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
always say
And
that.
if they say, "We heard about it in the newspaper," I'm like, "Oh, really? Is it?" And I see their city. I'm like, "Is it the one in this location?" And sometimes they blow me out of the water and they say, "Actually, no, I live here, but if I get my work paper here and this is where," but I think it's fascinating to get it, but it's the one-offs. And the nonprofit person in me is really just trained to look for outcomes and impact. So I'm trying to figure out how do I transfer that over into the advertising world, and especially when advertising is not my background. But I tried. At least hopefully someone else out there was thinking the same thing. But and if we don't have in-house experts, if we don't have graphic designs and writers, we tend to look for volunteers who have those skills and bring them in. Are there other avenues you think we should be considering?
Well, always ask if, as a nonprofit, would you charge us to do this, or maybe that'd be part of the deal. And a good printer in the area, you could always go to them. They have reasonable rates, could help you out. But always ask the publication or whatever it is, the radio station, the TV station, if they can help you, because they want it to be good.
Right. Well, and I think great advice for our listeners too is if you are paired up with a local university that has a program in marketing and advertising, they're always looking for projects to be able to help their portfolio, especially that senior year when they're looking for that job. They don't want to just have education.
Like an intern.
They don't want to just have education on their background. They'd like to have education and some experience. So reach out, find a professor or a marketing club or an advertising club, and see what type of projects that they do, and if they'd be willing to give that information out to their students. And
it could be a project.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and think of how many T-shirt designs that we do in nonprofit for events or program designs, and we're trying to think of something, and we end up having to sometimes pay a very nice person who's a graphic design artist to do it, and it looks beautiful, but wouldn't it be neat? And
and I actually am one of those people that I have a consultant, a graphic designer consultant that he does everything of ours except for like the little bit of stuff we do in Publisher. But because we always use him and because we talk about our rates at the beginning of the year, he's able to say, okay, I know, we've worked together for 10 years now. So he's like, okay, I know you need this for this event. You need this for this event. You've got this many newsletters. So he knows what's coming and he knows when it's coming. So
you package everything with one person.
With one person.
And you get a better deal probably in that way than you would be if you piecemeal it out.
Yeah. And we've got a really solid long-term relationship too. So that's really helped too. His prices haven't raised much on us, even though I know that his work is probably worth a lot more than we're paying for it these days.
And we appreciate him.
Yes,
we really knows who he is.
Yeah. Love them.
But yeah, a friend of the podcast, Alex Matthews.
There you go. Oh, look, here's a little plug, Alex. That was just for you.
Yeah.
But that's good advice too. Having talking with someone about a whole package and then piecemealing that in your budget can be a good move for nonprofits.
Right.
Yeah.
Great
we think
idea.
of budget struggles. Yeah.
Yeah. So in our last couple of minutes, how about some valuable lessons in advertising? Maybe, Natalie, do you have any personal advice for advertising that you can share with our nonprofit listeners?
Wow. I probably do. You just kind of have to pick your brain after all the years that we've been doing it. I think some of the best advice I ever got about advertising was don't assume. Don't assume that they know your number. Don't assume that they know your website. Don't assume that they understand what you do. And because I think we tend to, I don't know about you, but in nonprofit, we tend to, if we make it in-house and then we share it in-house and say, what do you think? What do you think? And we all go, oh yeah, that looks great. So if you have a nice, trusted third-party source that knows your organization and appreciates you, but maybe isn't in the day-to-day grind, I think spouses do a great job at this because
mine is my biggest editor.
They can be great critics that support us as well. But I think the other thing we tend to do is because nonprofits don't have budgets, we tend to try to overcrowd the space. And we need to, just like when we speak, we need to enjoy the silence and embrace that silence when you're speaking. You need to do the same for the white space. I think people try to cram too much in there and then everything gets lost. And there's something to be valued in that.
Yeah, well, and you kind of just stole mine there, Natalie.
I did it on purpose.
The white space.
Yeah.
But, one of my biggest pet peeves and one of the things I've really had to learn, especially in the organization that I work in, is making sure that everything's big enough that people can actually see it and read it.
Yes.
So I want, if something's sitting across the table from me, I want to be able to at least read the biggest parts of it from across the room. If I'm doing a billboard, I want people to be able to read it and retain it
while they're driving 65 miles an hour.
Yeah. So, those are really important things that had to learn that the hard way a couple times, trying to just pack everything in.
Right.
But
Because you want to get the best value.
Yeah, you want to get best value, but you also want people to remember it, and they're not going to remember all the big things anyway. So get them to the website, get them to the phone number, get them excited enough. Pictures worth 1,000 words. So,
pictures, bright colors.
Yeah.
Proofreader. That's my biggest piece of advice today. Always have a proofreader. Just like you said, let everybody look at it. Make sure you get the who, what, when, and where, the Facebook, the website, the phone number. It's crazy how we can all look at it, or the client will look at it and send it back. Oh, it's great. And then they forget the phone number. Or something like that. So fortunately, that hasn't happened very often, but
I think, allow yourself to make that mistake and know that they're going to happen. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's advertising. It's not brain surgery. No one's, depending on you to make this perfect, but obviously we're going to give it our best effort. Yep. But I always feel like we tend to beat up our marketing or our advertising gurus for, I can't believe you didn't put that parentheses, close that parentheses on there, or you didn't put a space between the hyphen, which is a pet peeve of mine. There should be a space there.
Yes, on both sides.
Right, thank you. I appreciate that. But we do make mistakes. So reach out to your friendly advertising agent that you use, or friendly advertising friend, and thank them for what they do. They take a big brunt of the sarcasm when it's all said and done.
Well, I think that we're all out of time, but Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having
awesome.
Me. That was a fast 30 minutes.
It really was. But before
our audience members feel the same way.
Before we go, how can everybody get in touch with you? What's the best way to learn about you and Marketplace Magazine and even Masterworks?
Because we promised them we would give them that information.
All right. Well, I love emails, and it's lisa.adams@marketplacemagazine.biz. My phone number is 618-416-1839. And Facebook is Marketplace Magazine and Masterworks Corral and Children's Courses. What else is there? Website is marketplacemagazineonline.com. And Masterworks is nice and short, singmasterworks.org.
Wonderful. And what is Masterworks? Because I know you've quoted it several times and you do work for them.
Is a community course that was founded 43 years ago now by Dr. Dennis Sparger, who's a Belleville resident. He is also the conductor at the Bach Society, but he founded Masterworks all those years ago at SWIC. It's kind of started with the youth chorale at SWIC and then grew to all these people around the community joined, like my parents. And it is auditioned. You have to audition to be in it. And it's anywhere from 35 to 40 members at a time. We're always looking for singers.
All age groups?
For the adult course, it'd be best to be 18 or college age and up. Then we have children's courses, which is 3rd grade to 12th grade.
Okay.
And that audition is not nearly like the grown-ups. So, in fact, we're having a summer camp this week.
Oh, wow.
And it's really super. They learn how to read music, sing correctly, musical instruments. The St. Louis musicians will come in and talk with them. It's a super thing. And the conductor, Dr. Mager, conducts it himself.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And he took over for Dr. Sparger a few years ago. So now he's in charge. And he's also composer in residence at Bach Society.
Man, you've got a lot of talented people in the crew.
We do.
So if you love singing in the shower, or you've been singing in your car and your friends are always like, you're so good, you should sing somewhere, and you don't know where, come see Lisa, and we'll get all the information in the show notes for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us today.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you for joining us on 501 Crossroads. 501 Crossroads is recorded at the studios of Mind's Eye Radio and is produced and hosted by me, Marjorie Moore.
And me, Natalie Jablonski.
Mike Curtis is our sound engineer. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher or your favorite app and subscribe and leave us some feedback so others can find us. You can find us on Facebook at 501 Crossroads. Thank you for listening, and remember,